Hey Sami, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. How is your training going?
It depends on what type of training you're talking, but I call this two things. There's training and exercising. I always exercise. These days, my training is a little bit less focused, especially when it comes to triathlon because of the rowing expedition that we're working on.
So that's actually where I was headed with this. You're working on a major rowing effort. So you're probably still swimming, biking, and running, but not as much.
Correct. So this June 2014, in a couple of months' time, my wife and I we are rowing unassisted from San Francisco to Hawaii, which is about 2,400 miles. It takes about 2 months, so there's a lot of not only physical training but other training that we have to complete before we actually launch. So that's taking a fair amount of time. I'm still running and biking and swimming, but obviously, if you add something, something else falls off at the other end.
Um, whose idea was it to do this expedition?
I blame my wife, but I think I had the initial sparkle, the idea, excitement to do something like this, and then together we kind of developed and agreed on what to actually do.
What's what's the longest workout you have done with your wife?
You mean together?
Together, yes. Together, yes.
We've done a fair amount of sort of active holidays. We don't really count them as workouts, but a couple of years ago, for example, we spent a couple of weeks in Nepal, and one of the things we did was we thought we would mountain bike around the Mount Annapurna, which is one of those 8,000 meter plus peaks. But the mountain biking turned into 30% of the time carrying the mountain bike. So I think that would be one example where we spent about 9 days mountain biking, a good 5 to 7 hours a day, of which probably 2 3 hours was carrying a heavy steel mountain bike, hundreds of steps up the hill. So we've been sweating and suffering quite a bit together, but we just don't necessarily always consider it as a workout.
Well, in this case, I guess maybe in Nepal it's not that different. You're kind of left to your own devices to some degree, and you're not having too many other people to fall back on. And in terms of logistics for this trip, what have you done that you can ensure that beyond the regular, general aggravation you could possibly have about things, rowing for 12 hours or 10 hours a day? Um, but what have you done to kind of keep up your security and safety?
Yeah, well, for mental safety, I think the biggest test is we've been married for 3.5 years, so we've stress tested the marriage in different types of situations. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, we want to break the world record and be very fast in the speed world record and be very fast in rowing. But don't get me wrong, the number one priority is safety. We don't want to do anything that truly risks our lives. So we've done a lot of things like ocean safety and survival training, the same kind of things that if you're doing open water or open ocean sailing racing. So these are kind of 2 day, full day courses where you learn how to use life rafts and all kinds of things. How do you put off a fire? So that type of training. We obviously have all kinds of gear, so satellite phone, VHF radio, different types of emergency equipment that we need to know how to use if we have to use. And then, of course, there's a fair amount of skills needed to fix if something goes wrong. Most importantly, we have to be self-sufficient basically all the time because you can't expect that someone's going to show up in 2 hours if something goes wrong. It might take a day or two before someone finds you in the middle of the Pacific. So I think that's the most important thing. The mindset has to be we are self-sufficient. If something goes wrong, we have to be able to get back to the boat or fix the boat or make sure the boat turns around. There's nobody following us, so there's no helicopters flying around who will drop off the ladders for us to climb off. So self-sufficiency is the key.
So yeah, no, I didn't really think that you're going to have a helicopter with you, but there's not going to be also a boat, like some kind of yacht following you, or some motorboat of sorts hovering in the general area to make sure that you're not eaten by sharks or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I've had a lot of friends who asked. I'm sure there's someone who's on a motorboat just behind you, but no, it's unsupported, which means we don't take any assistance during the roll, and nobody is actually going to be following us. And I think there's a reasonable chance that we don't even see another boat after the first 1 or 2 days when we leave the California coast until we arrive in on the Big Island. Oh, actually, it's Oahu, Honolulu, where we are supposed to arrive.
So, what are you using for navigation?
We have a GPS, or actually two GPS units, one's installed into the rowing boat and then a handheld GPS device. That's a primary form of navigation. Then, of course, we have charts and maps just in case everything fails. I have to confess that I don't have the skills and the abilities to use the celestial navigation. So I hope the GPS works and we can rely on that.
Well, no, I mean, the question comes up especially because it's you said you try to be competitive. And if you're busy rowing hard to gain distance, there's also a chance that you're rowing off course or rowing maybe not going backwards or something, but maybe.
Yeah. No, it's actually a good point. I'm a physicist by training, so I love all kinds of math puzzles. But in this case, since we will be rowing nonstop, 24/7, 2 on, 2 off kind of schedule, we'll be probably sleep deprived and a little off on the thinking side of things. So what we try to do is eliminate any kind of complex decision making from the process. So we actually have a weather expert who's helping us and will be sending us coordinates and headings almost on a daily basis, just based on the winds and the currents and the weather patterns. So for the most part, hopefully, we only need to follow a specific heading and make sure that the boat's pointing to the right direction. But then also it's a rowing boat, so it's not going to be moving, faster than maybe 3 knots. So we're talking 3-4 miles an hour. So it's not moving very fast. So it's not like a motorboat or sailing boat where you have to make an hourly adjustments. It's more like, let's row hard to this direction for a day and then see where we are and adjust the course as needed.
You're doing this also for a cause. You're not just doing this for a challenge, a personal challenge. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. We're raising awareness and funds against sugar and processed carbohydrates, and I think it's a very important course. And there's actually a personal story which I haven't really shared too much behind this, which is for the last 20 years or a good 15 years, I followed the traditional nutrition advice, which is avoid fat and cholesterol, and you'll be happy and healthy, and you don't get heart disease. And as you know, I've been a reasonably competitive endurance athlete all these years, low body fat and very fit. But it turned out that I was pre-diabetic just a few years ago. Why was that? Because I was eating almost zero fat, and consequently, my diet was very carbohydrate and sugar and processed carbohydrate heavy. And I thought it's very, very healthy. But, a sub 9-hour Ironman with 8% body fat, if I can get myself into almost diabetes, what can happen to someone who's not even exercising? So, and I've turned around my diet since basically upside down in the last 2-3 years. But that's the course we are raising money and awareness for during this rowing expedition.
So, but that means I know I'm kidding here, but if you leave in June, you'd probably be time for the Ironman Hawaii anyway.
Yeah, I certainly have plenty of time to show up at the start line, but I haven't signed up for any events that I could even qualify for the Hawaii this year. So I think after 7 years, this is going to be the first year that I'm not racing there, and it feels like a pretty welcome break. I am racing at least one race this year. It's the Wildflower Long Course in a couple of months' time. So we'll see how that goes with all the rowing training. And quite frankly, I haven't really been on my time trial bike or done any triathlon specific training at all. But that's the only triathlon race I have.
Well, we hope that your big row across the ocean is going well. Don't you have a website for this?
Yes, we have a website. It's very simple. It's fatchancerow.org. And you can read and learn more about how the expedition is going. And then also those who believe in the cause that sugar should be pulled out of our Western diets can also donate there. We are raising money for charity. And 100% of the money goes to charity. Nothing goes to our expedition expenses. And we also have sponsors who will match the donations. So if you give $20, it turns into $40 with no effort.
Excellent. Well, we wish you and your wife lots of fun over those few months. And maybe we check in before then one more time with you.
All right. Well, thanks so much. I think we need all the luck.